Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin and I am the Dream Decipherer, and I help people to crack the code of their sleep and dreams so they can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening's I have a pair of dreams. They were dreamed either back to back or in close sequence in time, in terms of time with one another, and therefore are probably related. Now, they are also examples of what I call smokestack dreams, which are dreams that burn off the remains of the stresses of the day. For example, on your way to work, somebody cuts you off, or you've had an argument with a colleague, things like that. So the stresses that you weren't able to throw off during the day get thrown off at night just to burn off that stress. So, or as I call them, dreamlets. But the first of these two short dreams, the dreamer was in his car on his way to work, and a client of his who has problems with apparently mental health issues and substance abuse issues was actually doing what we call squeegeeing on car windshields while he was sitting in his car. Now, for whatever reason, when the dreamer saw this client cleaning car shields, car windshields rather, he was reminded of the Illuminati by this client for whatever reason. Now, the dreamer also somehow understood that this client knew that he had some money hidden in his car in the glove compartment and demanded the money. The dreamer said, "No, I don't have any money." But then the client pulled a gun, said he didn't, well, indicated he didn't believe him, pulled the gun, and ended up robbing him. The second of these short dreams is with this very same client, but in a different environment. They're in an office situation someplace. Now, the dreamer was very angry with the client and shouted at the client in front of his colleagues in the middle of the workspace. And though he realized after this happened that he obviously made a mistake and shouldn't, and it was very unprofessional, as well as unethical, that um, there was also the danger that he might lose his job over his behavior. Now, these two little dreams threw up a number of questions that I think it would be useful for the dreamer to look at. And first of all, my first question was, is this something that has happened recently, or is it something that happened in the past? Um, I mean, in terms of any kind of altercation or with a client or at work. My other questions starts with the client. Who is this client? How, what does this client represent for the dreamer? There's obviously the connection with work because of the work type of work that the dreamer does, but what specifically does this client represent? Now, the one thing that I always have to remind people of is that people who appear in our dreams are not necessarily themselves. The dreams come from us and therefore are about us, but our brains will hang feelings, thoughts, sensations, etc., on familiar objects and people. So is this client actually representing the client, or is it representing some aspect of the dreamer himself? Now, the Illuminati, I had to actually um, re- look this up briefly to remind myself exactly who or what the Illuminati were. And if you've read the Da Vinci Code or saw the movie, or read other books about the Vatican and secret codes and things, you'll know who the Illuminati are. But why does this particular client remind you of this Illuminati? Now, the Illuminati, just to explain, is associated with, first of all, conspiracy theories, secret societies, including the Masons and other secret groups, and hidden knowledge. I mean, you think about the Masons with their secret signs and symbols, and other groups that have their particular language and signals and what have you. It speaks to hidden knowledge, and I wonder if that client somehow represents, in the being able to discern that the client had this money that he happened to find in his car in the glove compartment, had access to some kind of hidden knowledge or secret knowledge. So that's, so far, um, that my next question was, so how did this client actually know that this dreamer had the money? Was there some kind of unspoken exchange between the dreamer and the client, that even though he denied having this money, the client said, "You're lying," and robs him? Um, and the fact that it was 50 pounds, what does 50 or 50 pounds represent? What could that be? Other than it an actual denomination of cash, what does 50, the number 5 or the number 50, represent? Numbers can have a significance in our dreams as well. So there's something around that amount that may just be significant. Now, like, come back to the client robbing the dreamer at gunpoint, indicating there's some violence there, or some kind of power play there, or being overpowered in some way, or held to ransom, literally. So there's something about the play on words about being held up. I mean, at least as to an American. But there's the unconscious mind will use things like plays on words and all kinds of verbal gymnastics, if you will, to be able to get a point across. And I just wonder if something being held up or someone being held up may be significant in this particular case. Now, the other thing that I come back to the dreamer himself and the fact that he was driving a car. Now, vehicles, I have found in my own dreams and in that of clients, usually represent our level of agency, our level of ability to act under our own power and steam. So if we're driving the car, that can indicate that we're the ones in the driving seat, literally, and in control. Sometimes people dream about someone else driving them somewhere, and that could mean that they are not necessarily in control of this particular journey or process. The type of vehicle can make a difference as well. If a person is on foot as opposed to taking a plane. So there's also something about the speed of the progress or journey as well. The dreamer didn't indicate whether the car was actually stationary or in movement. I'm assuming that it was either stopped or parked, stopped at a light, for example, or parked. But there's something about movement and lack of movement there that maybe should be looked at. Now, I'm assuming that the client was on his way to work. He saw a client from his work, but was he on his way to work or someplace else? Destinations may also play a part in in understanding what the dream is trying to communicate. Now, this second dream with this altercation that goes on between the client and the dreamer, it's the phrase that came to mind when I read that was washing your dirty linen in public, so to speak, or airing in other words, airing your grievances in a very public way, and probably a way you don't necessarily intend, but with colleagues and passersby, I suppose, being that it was in a public space, as witnesses. Now, it is interesting to note that even as this was going on, the dreamer, the dreamer was actually aware of the fact that their behavior was outrageous, that it was unethical, as just being rude and unprofessional, and that it had the potential of actually impacting his ability to stay in his job. But there's a theme here about rebelling against the system, perhaps, and there's something in that, I think, that seems to run through both dreams, that there's going against the norm, or going against the grain, or not following standard procedure in some way. And maybe this outburst that took place in a public space was part of a rebelling against the system, the norms, in some way. But there's certainly much, much more that could be pulled out of this dream, but these two little dreams. But I think for the purposes of the dreamer, they has a number of things that could be looked at, and looked at quite deeply to really pull out some meanings. And I'll be fascinated to hear from the dreamer afterwards if any of this has stimulated any thoughts. And that's one of the great things about doing these lives, actually, is that I can get feedback offline from the actual dreamers to see what has come up or what insights they've gained as a result of the clues that I decipher for them that could be of use to understand the dream. So there you have it. Those are my two little dreamlets this evening. And if you have a dream that you'd like to share, and get some tips on how to break down and look at, contact me. You can simply send me your dream via Messenger by Thursday at noon, and I will look at the dream and actually present it with some answers, anonymously, of course, but you will know it's your dream. Or if you're really shy, you can email me, and I will be happy to take the information again by Thursday noon and give you an answer. That email address is Sheila, that's SHEILA, at The Dream Detective, all one word, thedreamdetective.me, M-E. So I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you gained some insights into your own dreams this evening with these little explanations I've given this evening. And I hope you feel brave enough to share your dreams and get some answers yourself. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a fantastic evening and rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon. Oh, and don't forget, Slip into Sleep Sundays, I look at people's sleep and how they can improve it. Take care. Bye-bye.